Hello there. This is not an ordinary story, and if you're an Aries, this might be the warning your soul has been waiting for a very, very long time, because someone is coming, not to hurt you, but to take away the one thing most precious to you without you even knowing it, someone you love, a sacred connection, a piece of your heart. And the most dangerous part is, he doesn't leave behind scars, he leaves behind doubt. So take a moment, sit with me, because what you're about to hear will make you realize those quiet whispers in your heart. They weren't random, they were the beginning, the very first sign that something was off. Danger doesn't always knock with a loud noise. Sometimes it slips in like smoke, or a quiet space just wide enough for a feeling to pass through. One ordinary afternoon suddenly chills your spine. A glance too quick to hold, yet it lingers in your mind. A name mentioned twice in the same day, and you don't even know why. These tiny things, so small they are easy to ignore, are often the soul's way of speaking. It's the universe, whispering for you to feel, not to think, because what's coming won't show up with noise. It arrives through strange familiarity, that sense of something's off, even when you can't name it yet. And now, it's getting close, that gray-haired man. He's not what you imagine when you think of danger. No menacing looks, no obvious sense of threat. In fact, he might seem calm, slow, blending into everything else. And that is what makes him more dangerous than most, because he's not here to scare you. He's here to take what you love the most, someone you care about, a sacred bond, or maybe a part of yourself, your light, your intuition, your faith in good things. What makes him so dangerous is that he doesn't walk in through the front door. He finds a crack in your feelings, a moment when you're too tired to stay alert, a day when you stay silent instead of asking questions, a night when you lower your guard because no one's there to understand what you're feeling. But you know what's even scarier than him? It's when you start to doubt yourself. Maybe I'm being too sensitive. Maybe I'm just imagining things. Maybe I shouldn't say anything because there's no proof. But your soul doesn't need proof. It only needs you to listen, because the soul never warns without a reason. You're Aries, the fire in you never goes out. But sometimes that fire grows quiet, not because it's weak, but because it's watching. And the moment those little things stop feeling normal, that's when your soul sends its first signal. Something is approaching. Maybe you can't sleep for no clear reason. Maybe you've had the same dream over and over again. Maybe someone's gaze hits you in a way that makes you feel seen, but in the wrong way. Or maybe one late afternoon you suddenly feel unsafe, walking down a street you've walked 100 times before. Don't dismiss that feeling, because feeling is the soul's first language. In a world full of noise, we're taught to wait for evidence. But souls like yours, deep, ancient, awakened, don't need evidence to act. You only need a whisper and a deep breath to believe what you feel. That man, maybe you haven't seen his face clearly, but you felt his presence in the unsettling glance of a stranger, in the same car parked on the same street 3 days in a row, in the way the wind stops right when you walk through a doorway. Not everyone can sense it, but you, the awakened one, you can. You don't need to know everything. You just need to trust that first feeling. And when you choose to trust your soul, instead of ignoring it, something powerful happens. You stop being the one who's being watched and become the first to see what others can't. It's not about running. It's not about fighting. It's about standing tall with light, with intuition, with courage, like a true Aries, because what's coming next is not just a test. It's a doorway, a place where darkness thought it could sneak in, but instead accidentally awakened the eternal light inside you. And sometimes it's in that silent knock from your soul that you realize you've just stepped into the next level of your journey, where you don't just see who's coming, but you also see who opened the door for them. Because darkness, Aries, rarely walks in alone. It always finds a way through the door someone else left open. And sometimes that someone is the one you trusted most. Darkness, dear Aries, rarely walks alone. It's clever, patient, and knows how to borrow the face of someone who seems harmless. Sometimes it arrives through a woman with soft eyes and a peaceful smile, someone with no bad intentions, in fact, someone who means well. But sometimes those very people unknowingly become the ones who open the first door. It could start with an innocent question. So, where are you living these days? Or a passing comment. You walk by that area a lot, don't you? Just casual words, light, like a breeze, but did you feel it, that ripple in your chest, a heartbeat that skipped, a strange little tension you couldn't name, something inside you didn't want to answer, but you nodded anyway out of politeness, and in that very moment, a door cracked open. She didn't know her words were carrying something. She didn't realize that behind them someone was listening from the shadows, a gray-haired man, with eyes cold as a December morning, waiting for a single crack in your guard, just one clue, one location, one sliver of your soul left exposed in a moment of fatigue, and she, the woman who seemed so innocent, became the invisible hand that unlocked the gate, not out of malice, but out of naivety in a world that's no longer pure. You see, Aries, darkness doesn't force its way in. It persuades, it whispers. It leads good people to make wrong moves, not through control, but through unconsciousness. And the lesson here, Aries, is one that every awakened soul learns with time. Not everyone who looks gentle is protecting you, and not everyone standing beside you walks with the light. In this world, the greatest danger doesn't always come from enemies you can see. It comes from those who unknowingly invite the darkness in, from people who never saw the face behind the mask. And you, with your radiant light, are often the target of tests like these, because the brighter the flame, the more subtle the shadows become. But this isn't a condemnation. It's a wake-up call to remind you you don't need to be suspicious of everyone, but you do need to be intentional about who's allowed into your inner space, because kindness without awareness can become the tool of darkness. Just like the home you live in, it can be beautiful, peaceful, full of love. But if you never check who holds the keys, one day someone may walk in without knocking. Never underestimate the power of accidental moments, when you ignore a passing feeling of unease, when you think it's probably just a coincidence, when you close your eyes instead of confirming your gut feeling. That's when your energy begins to leak. You don't need to blame the one who slipped up and revealed something about you. You don't need to carry anger or suspicion, but you do need to learn to set loving boundaries, not to create distance, but to protect the sacred space inside you, a space no one should enter unless your soul says yes. Because sometimes, Aries, it's not that you let someone in, it's that you forgot to close the door while you were too busy loving the world, and the world doesn't always know how to love you back the way you deserve. So take a closer look. Listen with your whole heart, because life will send you warnings before it's too late. A comment, a feeling, a strange moment you can't explain. You don't need evidence. Discomfort is already enough. Your light is sacred. Not everyone is conscious enough to stand close to it without dimming it. And if someone, whether it's a familiar woman, an old friend, or a seemingly harmless coworker, ends up handing darkness the map to your light, then forgive and step back, because darkness can only go where someone opens the way. You can't control everything, but you can quietly close the door that was once left open. And in the moment you close that door with loving awareness, you'll discover something even deeper. Not everything you see is everything that's happening. And when you begin to accept that truth, you rise to a higher level of your journey, where every sign, no matter how subtle, becomes a divine alert, where every detail, no matter how small, could be the piece that protects someone you love. Because real light doesn't just help you see, it helps you understand what the darkness has been hiding all along. And sometimes, Aries, what the darkness hides most carefully is the very sign you already saw, but thought you were imagining. Only when you're silent enough can you finally see it all. The world is speaking to you, Aries, not through words, but through signs, through small shifts in the air, through strange repetitions that seem to mean nothing, through moments that stop you in your tracks and you don't even know why. A strange colored car parked on a corner you pass every day. The first time you ignore it. The second time you feel confused. By the third time your heart skips a beat. It's not the car that follows you, it's the feeling that comes with it. A look from across the coffee shop. It doesn't linger, but for a second you feel exposed, seen. A gust of wind that suddenly stops right as you step off the curb. No sound, no one around, just a stillness too perfect to feel safe. You're not imagining things, you've already seen it all. You just haven't yet learned the language these signs are trying to speak. Because the trap of darkness never shows itself in light. It hides in what looks normal, in routine, in the invisible. It doesn't need you to see it. It just needs you to ignore it. That's why those who survive the spiritual awakening aren't the ones who analyze best. They're the ones who listen to silence, who trust the pulse in their chest, who believe the feeling they can't explain because they know the soul speaks in its own ways. One of the greatest dangers of modern life is forgetting how to feel without needing proof. Everything must be logical, data-driven, explainable. But the truth is, light doesn't need to make sense, and darkness doesn't leave a map. They both leave behind one thing, a frequency, and only those who are still, sensitive, and willing to trust their inner knowing can hear it. And Aries, you're already hearing it, you just haven't trusted yourself yet. Maybe you told someone about that car. They said you're overthinking it, so you stayed silent, but your soul kept talking. Maybe you saw that stranger again, and in the light of day they looked normal. But you knew, you always know, because the truth is your intuition has never been wrong, you've just been trained to doubt it. This is your invitation to return to your first sacred sense, feeling. Notice the patterns, the strange sensations in your body when someone enters the room, the spaces that make your chest tighten, the glances that keep you up at night. These are warnings, maps, clues, and the moment you stop ignoring them, you'll begin to see the whole design, the darkness laid out around you. But here's the powerful truth, you were never the vulnerable one. You're Aries, you're fire, you're the pioneer in places no one else dares to walk. And when you choose to look straight at what's hiding, it steps back. The difference is not whether you see it, it's whether you trust what you see, because everything has already been sent to you, the strange car, the eerie glance, the wind that suddenly stopped. They were all messages, and your soul in its own way has already taken note. You just need to turn around, take a deep breath, and listen again, because sometimes the smallest things you thought were meaningless are the very clues you need to protect what you love the most. You see, darkness doesn't need to be strong to win. It just needs you to stop paying attention. And in a world that never stops screaming, the first ones to survive aren't the loudest, or the fastest, or the smartest. They're the ones who know how to sit still, close their eyes, and trust the movement of light when it begins to speak from within, because at the next level, that darkness will no longer hide. It will shift tactics, and you, Aries, must remember this one truth. Only when you stop being passive can the light become a true wall of protection around what you love. Cruelty doesn't always wear a clear face. It doesn't need to threaten you. It doesn't need to raise a hand. It just needs to plant one seed of doubt. And suddenly you start to wonder, maybe I'm just overthinking. Maybe I'm just being too sensitive. You used to take pride in your sharp intuition, that deep connection you had with your inner knowing, but then one day you hesitate. You second guess what your soul is picking up. You're no longer sure whether you should trust it. And Aries, that's the most dangerous kind of wound. It doesn't make you bleed, but it makes your soul pull back. It silences you from the inside out. No one attacked you, but somehow you started turning on yourself bit by bit. Every time you shoved your feelings aside, just to avoid bothering someone. Every moment you held your tongue because what if you were wrong? Every forced smile, when deep down your spirit was screaming, something isn't right. That wasn't weakness, that was kindness, misplaced, because kindness, without awareness, without clear boundaries, can become the perfect soil for doubt to grow in. Darkness doesn't always destroy you from the outside, it just has to make you lose faith in the light inside you. The moment you stop trusting your intuition, the moment you start dismissing your soul, the moment you begin to tolerate what's draining you, that's when darkness knows it has already taken the first step in. There's a deep truth that only the wounded understand. Anyone, no matter how soft they appear, if they ever make you question your light, your goodness, your deep sensitivity, they don't deserve to stand in the space of your soul. Read that again, slowly, and let your heart answer it. You felt misunderstood when all you did was be honest. You felt judged for believing in things others couldn't see. You've been called too much, just for loving, feeling, and seeing deeper than most are willing to go. And if that ever made you shrink, if you ever curled into yourself, tired of explaining who you are, then please remember this. You were not born to please the world. You were born to keep your soul's fire burning. There are people who enter your life only to make you doubt yourself. They don't have to say much. They just have to make you forget that you have the right to have boundaries. And when you lose your boundaries, you lose the very foundation of your life. Aries, you have the right to feel, you have the right to speak, you have the right not to explain yourself when your soul already knows the truth. You don't need to keep testing your light just because someone else can't see it. And if anyone has ever made you feel small in your own space, in your own energy, then this is your moment, not to fight them, but to come back home to you. When you reclaim your trust, In your own intuition, you're not just healing yourself, you're sending a message to the universe. I'm still here, and this light within me, no one gets to dim it. And sometimes, the moment you rise in silence, without arguing, without defending, just gently choosing to protect yourself again, that's the moment you activate your sacred shield of light. A wall not made of armor, but of pure belief that you deserve to be safe, for no other reason than because you are. And when you begin to believe that, every shadow, no matter how subtle, can no longer cross the energy of a heart that has awakened. You may have never realized it, but the fire inside you was always meant to become a ring of light. And when you relight that trust in yourself, you'll understand something powerful. Light never needed to be proven by logic. It only needed to be protected by love. Not every battle needs a sword, and not every kind of protection comes from outside. Because light, Aries, doesn't need to fight. It only needs to be there. You don't need to shout that you're strong. Just sit still with faith, because some forms of strength, the quieter they are, the harder they are to shake. Now imagine this. A room covered in darkness. No one walks in. No one turns on a light. But then one person quietly lights a candle. No sound, no force. But in that very moment, the darkness pulls back. That's what you're doing. Each time you light a white candle beside your bed, each time you place a glass of clear water next to it, each time you write your name 3 times on a small piece of paper, you're not casting a spell. You're returning to the most sacred part of yourself. No one needs to see it. No one needs to understand it, because this is a ritual of faith. And faith, when rooted in the right place, is more powerful than any wall made of bricks and stone. In that quiet moment, you're weaving a layer of pure energy around your body, your mind, your sleep. No one can step through it unless you allow them in. You may have thought, I don't know how to protect my energy like others. I don't know how to defend myself when I feel lost. But the truth is, you do. Your soul has always known. You just forgot how to listen. When you whisper or speak with calm power, my light is untouchable. My soul is protected. The love I give is shielded by forces unseen. You're not just speaking words. You're making a vow to the universe, to yourself, to all the higher parts of you that have been quietly watching over this whole time. You're not afraid anymore because you've awakened. And once a soul awakens, there will always be walls of light standing behind it. Not to trap you, but to protect you from what no longer belongs. Let that light be the first thing you think of in the morning, and the last thing you hold in your heart before sleep. No one can take away what you guard with love and presence, because sometimes, Aries, you don't need all the answers. You just need to hold your light, and that light will answer for you. In a world that's rushing toward everything, you're being called to slow down, to light a candle inside your heart, and to remember, a peaceful heart is the strongest wall darkness has ever faced. And once you're ready to protect that light, you'll also be ready to see this. Some people who once walked beside you are beginning to drift away, not because they're bad, but because their soul is under pressure from things they don't fully understand yet. And in that very moment, someone who once stood on the other side may begin to look toward the light with a heart that's growing heavier and a hand that's finally ready to let go of something they were never meant to hold forever. Some actions don't begin in darkness, but somehow they open the door for darkness to come in. That woman, the one who once asked you a question that seemed harmless, the one who briefly earned your trust, she left behind a trace, a moment, a single phrase, and through it, the gate between you and a shadow began to open. And now, her soul is starting to sense something's off. No thunder strikes, no warning dreams, just a feeling growing heavy in her chest, a fatigue not of the body but from a part of her that never had a name. She starts dreaming strange things, seeing odd images, numbers, whispers, flashes of light behind her eyelids as she wakes. She doesn't know she's being called. She doesn't realize she's now standing inside a greater map, one shaped by invisible hands, pushing the truth to rise from underneath the surface. But the universe doesn't wait for you to be ready. It sends the message, the moment you're meant to see. And one quiet night, she looks at the object that once tied her to that man. Maybe it's something small, a note, a gift, a piece of paper, just a trace, something that used to mean nothing. No one asked her to do it. No one saw her, but she let it go. No regret, no explanation, just release. And in that moment, every energetic thread was severed. No ritual needed, only awareness. And you, on the other side of this invisible field, You feel it before your mind can even explain it, a warmth in your chest, a single tear falling for no reason, one deep breath, so light it reminds you just how long you've carried this hidden weight. No one tells you what just happened, but your soul knows. The invisible chain that once tied you to an old script has been removed, not through words, but through the quiet act of another soul, a soul you once doubted, resented, even blamed. But this is what the universe wanted you to understand. Forgiveness isn't to set them free, it's to bring you home to yourself. When you stop holding on to anger, you begin to release the light. When you stop chasing justice out there, you begin to see the justice within. She, the one who lost her way, has now become part of your awakening, not with apologies, but with a silent choice to cut the tie, to no longer be the open door, to trust her own feeling even when she doesn't fully understand it. That is when the universe turns direction. When someone who once faced away from the light begins to turn back. When the world doesn't require you to fight for anything because what no longer aligns leaves you on its own. You don't need revenge. You don't need to reclaim justice. You don't need an apology to find peace. You only need to breathe and to understand this. Someone else's quiet release might just be the most beautiful apology the universe could send you. And in that moment of stillness, when the dust has cleared, you'll realize you were never truly alone on this path. Some souls who once got lost have returned, not to stand beside you, but to return the light you once lost along the way. And when that happens, your heart will open a new space, one where the real gifts don't come from someone else's hands, but from the light you protected through every single wound. When a soul steps out of the dark, it doesn't just carry safety for itself, it carries something deeper, brighter, something words can't always describe. You've walked through danger, you've moved beyond doubting your own worth. You've sat quietly in the dark, with nothing but a small candle in your hand, and still, you chose to keep the flame alive. And because of that, you are no longer who you used to be. You walk lighter now, not because the burdens are gone, but because you no longer carry what was never yours to hold. You don't need validation, because you've looked into the heart of loneliness, and you stood up anyway. The light in you now isn't here to prove anything, not here to protect your ego, not born from fear, but from growth. It's the light of a soul that has ripened, a soul that no longer needs to be loud, to be powerful. It just needs to be present, and somehow, everyone around it feels more at peace, without knowing why. That's when you understand something sacred. The strongest person isn't the one who strikes back the fastest, but the one who holds peace for others, simply by being still. One look, one slow word, one deep breath. In the middle of someone else's chaos, you don't need to convince anyone of what's right, because the light you carry already reminds others of the light within themselves. The universe knows that. And so when you've made it through, it doesn't give you a reward, it gives you a mission, not a mission written in a contract, not tied to a title, not followed by applause, just a quiet purpose to show up in the right place at the right time with the right frequency of light. People will find you, not because you promoted yourself, but because they felt something in you, a gentle trust, a support that asked for nothing, a hand not reaching out but always there if someone needed to hold on. That's when your light stops building walls and starts lighting the way for those still struggling to find their path. And slowly, you'll begin to see even more clearly that battle you once thought was to protect someone you loved was actually a sacred initiation. It was the birth of a new version of your soul, a soul no longer afraid of being lost, a soul that doesn't need to be seen to feel whole, a quiet soul, but one with a reach that crosses every boundary. There may be no applause, no spotlight, just a still, deep knowing that you are finally living in alignment with what you were born to become. And then, when your light expands beyond your own limits, you will see something you never realized before. The original attack wasn't just aimed at the person you loved, it was aimed at your soul's mission, because there are forces out there not afraid of who you are, but terrified of what you're here to do. And the moment you begin to walk your true path, they will try to stop you. And then, in a moment that felt like the end, you finally realize something no one ever said to you out loud. You're not being hunted. You're being called, not by sound, but through challenges, through fear, through the kind of loss that feels impossible to rise from. He didn't come to destroy you. He came as a distorted mirror, so you could see yourself clearly. He came as a catalyst to force a choice, either hide forever in the shadows or awaken and let your soul's light rise. Unstoppable. There are some lessons your soul can only learn at rock bottom, and when it does, it lights up, like a falling star landing, at the exact moment it was meant to, and that light was never given to you by anyone. It came from within from today on. You no longer need anyone to tell you that you're strong, because you survived, you've loved, you've lost, you've forgiven, and still, you're standing, and that is all the proof you'll ever need from here on out. Every time you feel a soft breeze brush across your shoulder, or a bird lands near you for no reason, or a stranger smiles with a warmth they never say aloud, pause, because that is not a coincidence. That is the universe responding. That is your soul vibrating like a quiet wave the world can somehow feel. And because you've made it through, you no longer live just to protect what you have. You live to radiate what no one can ever take away. Light, love, awakening, and a kind of peace that only souls who have been broken are able to carry. You may not know it yet, but your presence has already become a source of light for others. No need to explain, no need to prove. Just by being here, the world feels a little more safe. That's when it hits you. You were never a victim. You were the chosen one, chosen to rise, chosen to lead, chosen not to seek revenge, but to transform, not to judge, but to heal. And that light is the one thing the darkness will never be able to touch. Thank you for walking this journey with me, with an open heart and a soul that listens. May you always carry a light that no one can take away, and a love no shadow could ever dim.